I call this meeting of the Lockhart Independent School District Board of Trustees to order on August 15, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present, that this meeting has been duly called, and that notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code 551. Let the record show that trustees Pulliam, Sanchez, Burnett, Wright, Guyton, Lockhart, Reyes are present. We're going to move to item 2, public meeting. Public meeting for 2022-2023 proposed tax rate. Ms. Stevens? I would think it'd be up there.
Good evening. So at this time in the board meeting, when we are going to propose a tax rate, we offer this opportunity for the public to come with any type of questions on our proposed tax rate, which we did put in the paper 10 days prior to this meeting.
Does anybody in the audience wish to say anything?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I don't see anybody who wants to speak, so we'll move on to. This is a public meeting to talk about the proposed tax rate that we're going to set today for the next school year. The public has a right to say anything if they'd like to. If you want to say something, would you please come, sir? Would you please come at the microphone? And if you don't mind, would you please state your name?
My name is Victor Rowell, resident here, homeowner. I'm just curious, I'm not understanding why are we raising taxes in this city on homeowners? It looks like, you know, right around the corner is a recession about to happen. A lot of people in this area are dealing with a drought. I don't think it would be prudent to make them pay more property taxes at this time. I mean, I live on a street that's not paved well. And it makes me wonder, where has my tax money been going? And then I show up here and I see it's not to pave my street. It's really confusing. So like I said, at this time, I don't think making property owners pay more taxes would be a prudent situation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Does anybody else wish to comment? Okay, then I'm going to close this public hearing. We're going to move to item 3, just public comments. Anybody want to comment on any of the agenda items on the? Nobody has signed up, so we're going to move to item 4, communication action. Item A, approved resolution adopting the maintenance and operation tax rate, interest and sinking tax rate, and total tax rate for 2022. Ms. Dean.
Good evening. So it is my pleasure to bring to you the 2022 tax rate. We've been talking about this for about 6 months in the direction that we were going to be going. And so I hope this evening I'll be able to explain the details of our tax rate and what led us to our tax rate this evening. So this isn't, I apologize. This isn't. Okay. So I want to first go over what the tax rate consists of within the school district portion. So there's 2 buckets in our tax rate. We have our maintenance and operations side of the tax rate, and we have our INS side of the tax rate. So I'd like to talk a little bit about each of those. So again, we have our maintenance and operations bucket. This is what we use for the for salaries, for everyday function within the school district on the education of the students. And then we have our INS bucket. This is to help build the buildings that we are in. So the way that school funding works is that the M&O portion of the tax rate does not allow us to build schools. So when we need facilities, we have our INS rate to help grow our schools. And both of those buckets combined make our total tax rate. So on the M&O side, there's a couple of things that make up that tax rate. The first thing is the maximum compressed rate, which is set by TEA. And then the second portion is our golden pennies, which is also known as our enrichment pennies. And that's what makes up our total M&O tax rate. That one portion of the tax rate that allows us to operate, keep the lights on, have employees, buy all the supplies that we need. That's what the M&O tax rate is for. It can only be changed by two ways. One, by TEA compressing the tax rate, and they compress that down when our property values go up. And two, through a voter approval tax ratification election. So those are the only two ways that that tax rate can be changed. On the interest and sinking side, the portion of our tax rate that we use to fund the building of our schools, when property values go up, what that does is it allows the district two opportunities. One, to decrease the INS tax rate, or two, to pay down debt. And the district does have a history of holding the tax rate so that we can pay down additional debt. Most recently, we did a defeasance about 20 months ago that allowed for a $15 million savings over the life of the bonds for the taxpayer. And so we always will want to either reduce that INS tax rate or continue to pay down debt. We do have the lowest debt rate in the area, so we've made really wise decisions to keep that rate low. When property values increase, we always have that ability to increase our capacity, which we'll talk more and more about that as the night progresses. But what that means is that that means how much capacity do we have in order to build a school at the lowest cost for the taxpayer. So when we pay down debt, again, that's another opportunity to lower our INS rate or continue to pay more debt down. We do have that trend that we pay our debt down so that we can grow our capacity. Those two rates together are what make the total tax rate that would be for $100 of value within a home within Lockhart ISD. This is our tax rate history over the past 5 years. There's a whole lot of numbers on there that look a little bit small. This does have a pointer. So as you can see from 2018, we have dropped by over 20 cents in our tax rate. That's due to tax rate compression. There are two lines of detail of that tax rate. This top portion up here is our maintenance and operation. All the details of what I was saying are the two things that make up that portion of our tax rate, and then our INS rate, which, as you can see, we have that history of holding it steady so that we can pay down debt, which I am proud to say we have the lowest debt around, thanks to that wise decision of making those defeasance possible. And so, again, a lower tax rate. In 2021 and 2022, those are the two columns I want to focus on now. There's two differences that I'd like to point out. The INS rate stays the same. So we talked about how the INS rate stays the same, allowing for capacity and no increase to that portion of the tax rate. The other thing I would like to point out is that we have a new line, which is the additional VATR golden penny. So I really want to talk about what that is so that we're all understanding of that portion that is new in the tax rate that we're proposing. And in order to do that, I really want to dive deeper into the MCR tax rate, which that's that maximum compressed rate that is given to us by TEA. the Texas Education Agency. And so I will want to go into more detail on that, which will help explain that VATRE golden penny. So that brings us to our penny putback. So in 2021, at this time last year, TA assigned us a maximum compressed rate of 82.20 pennies. So that is the portion of our tax rate that is set by TEA. 82.2 pennies is the lowest tax rate in the state. That is the floor that TA has assigned to our district. So this year, when our new values came out on July 25th from Caldwell County, TA compressed our tax rate down, dropped it another 1.74 pennies for a new maximum compressed tax rate of 80.46 pennies. Again, this portion of the tax rate is set by the Texas Education Agency. So what administration is proposing is that we would have that 0.74 penny decrease in the maintenance and operation tax rate, but that we would have 1 penny put back in through tax rate compression back in to our M&O tax rate to assist with security, teacher salaries, and other things, other operational needs within the district. Oh, that went off a little bit, maybe through. So what this shows is that in 2021, the M&O tax rate, the first bucket that we use for our operational needs, was 0.87.20 pennies, so 87.2 pennies, and that the proposed tax rate for 2022 is going to be 86.46 pennies, or 0.8646 of a dollar. And what that is a proposed decrease in the maintenance and operations tax rate of 0.0074 pennies on $100 of value, and thus bringing us to the M&O penny putback, which is that voter-approved penny at the loss of our MCR, which is set by the Texas Education Agency. Another visualization of our total tax rate, just to show 2021 versus 2022, is that our total 2021 tax rate was 1.1297 pennies, so $1.12.97. Our INS rate stayed the same at 0.2577 and then we have our M&O bucket, that first bucket, of 87.2 cents. We're going to go into 2022. We have a total proposed tax rate of 1.1223 pennies, so $1.12.23. Again, keeping that INS rate the same, growing our capacity, and then having that VATRE golden penny of 1 penny, bringing our and showing our compression down to 85.46 cents, showing that we do have a decrease in our tax rate. So what will the VATRE do for the district? It will generate $1 million roughly of new revenue. So it's also very important to know that 1/3 of that $1 million roughly is actually from tax collection, and 2/3 of it is from state revenue that we receive because we have a little bit higher tax rate. The total tax rate decrease, again, is 0.0074 pennies. That golden penny value will increase each year based on two things: if we have increased property and if we have increased enrollment. So that penny will continue to grow with the district. So I need to talk about the no new revenue tax rate. The no new revenue tax rate is the M&O portion of the tax rate only. So what this shows is the total taxable value of all the property in Caldwell County that is in Lockhart ISD only. And it compares it from last year's total property to this year's total property, and it takes that new tax rate. So the old M&O tax rate of 87.20 pennies is 0.0074 pennies higher than the proposed tax rate of 0.8646 pennies on that M&O side. And then, so we take that new tax rate, we take that against the new values in Caldwell County within Lockhart ISD, and we have a new collection of an increase of just over $4 million. And so what that means is that we're going to get more in tax collection revenue, but at the same time, we're losing that same amount in state revenue. So TEA says the more that you collect based on the property growth within your district, the less we'll give you. It's an inverse relationship. And so while we might have a 21% increase in the total tax collection, we have a 21% decrease in our total state funding. So another important thing that I would like to point out here is that this is not a 21% increase in taxes for a homeowner. This is a 21% growth within the county. So that's going to be new business, new homes being built, and then added appraised value of current homes. So it's all three of those combined that make up that total taxable value within the school district. So what effect, do you have a question? I'm sorry, I don't want
I
to.
think it's worth repeating again that, as our local values go up, the state portion goes down in terms of what they contribute to our district. And so, we're just kind of replacing what the state is taking away from us, from money that's kind of produced here locally.
Absolutely. That is 100% true. So any time we have an increase, they'll decrease us.
Christine, will you remind the board and inform the public of, maybe it's helpful to compare the state portion last year versus this year? And how that
Yes.
changed?
So last year, our total revenue that we received from the state just on our everyday operations was 45%. And this year it is decreasing to 30%. So while they gave us, they closed our gap by 45% last year, they're decreasing it to only 30% this year. So anything additional that we receive in tax collection, the state just reduces their effort putting in towards us. Do you have any further questions on that?
Please continue.
Okay, good deal. So what effect does this proposed tax rate have on the average home here in Lockhart ISD? If you give me just a moment. That's hard for me to see at this angle, so I'm going to let this up. So here shows the 2021 actual value. So we have the average market value of a residence, and then we have the average taxable value of a residence. And the average taxable value is going to be significantly lower this year than the increase, because we can only, the county will only tax on a certain percentage of growth, right? That's one of the reasons. The other reason is that the new homestead exemption amount was approved by the voters. It was $25,000. It's now $40,000. So while the average while the average market value of the home has increased quite significantly by $75,000 on average, the taxable value has only increased by less than $10,000. And that's because of that freeze for the taxpayer when there is that high increase in value. So what that means is that for the average homeowner in Lockhart ISD, with the proposed tax rate, the tax rate has decreased. So the increase in potential taxes that are owed is not due to the tax rate, because the tax rate is actually decreasing. The proposed tax rate is a decrease. The increase is due to the increase in property value, and that comes to, on average, $100 per year for the average home here in Lockhart ISD. Without that golden penny, without that VATRE, the average home will see an increase of $84 on their annual tax bill. Okay, so we're going to break down now all the pieces of the tax rate. I want to talk about the voter approval tax rate. So the voter approval tax rate is the tax rate that we would have that would not require an election. And that's going to be our M&O compression tax rate, again, assigned to us by TEA. We are at the floor. Our local golden pennies that we currently have, our INS rate of 25.77 pennies for a total voter approval tax rate of 1.1123 pennies. So $1.1123 pennies is the voter approval tax rate. Our 2022 proposed tax rate includes that M&O compression tax rate of 80.46 pennies, our current 5 golden pennies, our 1 VATRE golden penny, and our INS tax rate for a total proposed tax rate of 1.1223 pennies or $1.1223 pennies on $100 of value. So this proposed rate is 1 penny higher than the voter approval tax rate, which would require the need for a voter approval election of the proposed tax rate. Again, this is a proposed decrease to the total tax rate of 0.0074 pennies. Do you have any questions on the proposed 2022 tax rate?
Board, are there any additional questions? If not, I will entertain a motion to approve the 2022-2023 tax rate.
I move that the total property tax rate be adopted in the amount of 1.1223 per $100 property value, which is effectively a 21.027% increase in the tax rate. And I further move that the board approve the resolution adopting the maintenance and operations tax rate, interest and sinking tax rate, and total tax rate as described in the resolution.
I'll second.
Who's second? Okay, I have a motion by Dr. Sanchez, a second by Mr. Reyes. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Before we move on to the next item, I want a little housekeeping here. I said that the meeting started at 6:30. It was actually 6 o'clock, so 6 o'clock p.m. So that let the record show we did start at 6 o'clock. We'll move on to item 4B, consideration of possible action regarding an order calling for a voter-approved tax rate election for the November 8, 2022 uniform election. Ms. Dean?
Good evening. Okay, so with the approval of our proposed tax rate, we will now that triggers a voter-approved tax rate election. So I want to go through all the details of that and answer any questions that you might have. So here we are with our voter approval tax rate. Our voter approval tax rate for the school district is our M&O tax rate of 80.46 pennies, our local golden pennies of 5 pennies that we currently have, our INS tax rate of 25.77 pennies for a total voter approval tax rate of 1.1123 pennies, which is $1.1123 pennies. That is 1 penny lower than what was just approved by the board at 80.46 pennies on the M&O compression rate. our 5 current golden pennies, our 1 additional golden penny, our INS rate at 25.77 for a total approved 2022 tax rate of 1.1223 pennies, $1.12.23 pennies. Again, total tax decrease of 0.0074. That does trigger a need for a voter approve election of the approved tax rate. So I want to talk about the penny putback one more time. The 2021 compressed tax rate given to us by TEA is 82.20 pennies. That's what we adopted 1 year ago this month. And then our July 25th certified values came out, and TA compressed us down to the new floor by 1.74 pennies, having our new maximum compressed tax rate of 80.46 pennies. We did approve that 0.74 penny would decrease from the M&O side, and that we would have a penny put back, 1 penny VATRE for that M&O side of the tax rate. So a comparison from last year's tax rate to what was approved this evening was that we had a 87.20 on the M&O side tax rate. We now have a approved M&O tax rate of 86.46 pennies, which is a decrease of 0.0074 and requires us for a VATRE. We're going to put back that penny that was lost through our MCR, our compression rate that is set by TEA. Here is the detail of our total tax rate compared to last year and then what was just approved. Again, that golden penny will generate about $1 million of new revenue to the district. A third of that revenue is through tax rate collection, and about 2/3 of that revenue is from additional state funding. That is just very, very important that that whole $1 million is from 2 sources, a third of it from the tax collection and 2/3 of it from state revenue. That penny will grow as we grow, either both in property or in enrollment. And then again, you can see that our INS rate stayed the same. We have a total tax decrease of 0.0074 pennies from 2021 to 2022. The effect that it has on the average home here in Lockhart ISD is going to be $100 per year. And this is the ballot language. So this is what I really want to spend a little bit of time on so that we really make sure that we understand the ballot language.
Ms. Dean,
Yes, sir.
I just want to ask a question just for clarification in terms of, you mentioned the increase of $100. It's actually $16 because the
That is not the 1 penny. So because this approved tax rate triggered a voter approval ratification election, that means that we have to put the entire tax rate on there. So again, that's why the total tax rate is on there and not just the 1 penny that that we're actually asking the voters to approve. Do you have any question on the total tax rate being on the ballot? Okay. The next thing I want to talk about is where it says an increase of 21.027%. Again, this is the language that is required. So when we talk about what that is, this is the total percentage of increase in total collections due to, one, the increase in the number of properties within the community, and two, the increase in property value of the properties that are in the community. So that's what that increase is. That is not an increase of the 0.01 penny that was just approved. The percentage is not an increase in the taxable value or the tax payment that a household in Lockhart ISD would make. The third thing I want to talk about is the additional $4,115,923. This is the increase in the total tax collection due to, one, the increase in the number of properties within the community, and two, the increase in property value of the properties that are currently in the community. It is not the increase in the total tax collection that Lockhart ISD will receive as a result of the tax ratification election. The increase in tax collection that Lockhart ISD will receive as a result of the tax ratification election is approximately $275,000. So of that $4 million that's on there, only $275,000 of it is for the election.
That's not confusing, is it?
Not at all.
The board, if you've ever, in the public, if you've ever wondered why we often talk about the state legislature not being supportive of public schools or making it difficult or trying to confuse people, here's a great example of basically trying to confuse people.
Yes.
This mandated language is designed to scare voters, to be honest, to make it look as bad as possible. Like you said, we're only collecting actually less than $300,000 off this, but a lot of people, all they're going to see is the $4 million figure, and it's going to scare them. And that's what it's designed to do.
21%.
Absolutely, which is why I wanted to really unpack each of those because it is misleading, and it also doesn't have a comma at the end that says, inversely, the district will lose $4 million in state funding. So unpacking each part of that and really understanding each of it is important.
Christine, I think the last part that you just said is the education that we need to have the community that, that $4 million is the district loses and the state, doesn't send us that one.
Absolutely. I wanted to show this in this portion as well. We talked about this just now about that inverse relationship. I also wanted to show in that language, I'll pull that right back up, where I got the 21.027% and where I got the 4,115,923. And this is where it is calculated. So we're taking last year's total collection compared to this year's estimated collection, seeing what that increase is and and the percentage of that increase. So it's the total collection and then it's the total collection increase. Again, as our total collection goes up, state revenue goes down. And I just also want to go back and just reiterate too, the $4 million is an increase in not just increased appraised value, but an increased added value of property that has been added to Lockhart ISD through businesses or new homes that are being built, which is higher than what is being collected just from appraised values. Do you have any questions about the ballot language or anything about the voter-approved tax rate election?
Board, any other questions of Ms. Dean or Mr. Estrada? Okay, then if no other questions or discussion, we'll entertain a motion.
Mr. President, I move to approve an order calling for a voter approval tax rate election to be held November 8th, 2022. I further move to authorize administration to take any steps necessary to effectuate such an election.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Rios, a second by Mr. Guyton. This voting is going to be a little bit different than we usually do. We're going to do it by roll call. So as I call your name, say yes or no. Ms. Pulliam,
Yes.
Dr. Sanchez,
Yes.
Mr. Burnett,
Yes.
myself, Mr. Wright, yes. Mr. Guyton,
Yes.
Mr. Lockhart,
Yes.
Mr. Rios.
Yes.
The motion passes 7-0.
Thank you all very much.
We're going to move to item 4C, consideration and discussion with respect to consideration and discussion with respect to a November 8, 2022 bond election and possible action regarding bond proposition options and ballot language. Mr. Estrada.
Thank you, President Wright. Before we get into language, I want to just remind everyone where we are. Going back to November of 2021, the board received a demographic report from our demographer describing our capacity study, how many students we had in each campus, the growth that we're seeing as a district, the number of students that are here and the students that we project to come. Since November, we've only had more developments, housing developments, continue to be planned and looking to have people moving in very soon. I wanted just to give us a quick reminder of our capacity study that brings us to today in this agenda item. When we look at our elementary school capacity, we know that right now, all of our facilities, Carver, Bluebonnet, Clear Fork, Navarro, ABS Strong, are all already over our optimal capacity, and Clear Fork even over the maximum capacity. Our only campus is Plum Creek Elementary School that is pushing that optimal, that is at the optimal capacity. When we look at years 23 and 24, we see that every campus except for Plum Creek will be well over the capacity, with Clear Fork being as high as 126 above capacity. And again, if you look at 2025, each year you go out, essentially the same thing happens. When you look at our secondary schools, Lockhart Junior High School is above optimal capacity. Lockhart High School is already over our maximum capacity, and Pride High School is running at optimal capacity. Same thing, projecting that out a couple of years, we'll see Lockhart High School continue to rise up to 110% in 2024 of capacity, with Lockhart Junior High School staying at that 90% of capacity. Again, not where we want it to be, but that's our current facilities study right now. When we look at across the district, the last couple of years, since 2019, the district has spent about $2 million just on portable costs. When we think about $2 million, that's about salaries of 30 teachers. There's a lot of resources and human resources that we could be providing to our students, but that's how much we've spent since 2019. Or almost every school has portables. Lockhart High School has at 7, Almond Brewer Strong with 3, Navarro with 2, Clear Fork with 2, Lockhart Junior High School with the portable, and Blue Bonnet with the portable as well.
Can I interrupt? It should be made clear that these portables are paid out of our M&O budget. That's our yearly operating budget. It's not, we're not able to use our debt service fund to pay for these portables. So every dollar we spend on the portable is $1 less, as Mr. Estrada said, that we can spend on other instruction, salaries, whatever we need for a classroom. And I think we all know that the service life of a portable is going to be much less than a hard building we might be able to build with a bond. So
Yes, sir.
it's not an optimal way to go for any district.
Before the meeting today, I had the opportunity to go to meet the teacher for my children at Navarro Elementary School. I have 3. My oldest, my 5th grade son, had the opportunity to meet his teacher in a portable and was reminded by the feeling of lack of security and the situation that we put students across the district in every day when we have portables. As we continue to try to ensure that our schools are safe, the more we put portables up, the less safe I believe our teachers and our students are in every day. We just went over the tax rate, and I think it's important for us. I've been talking to community leaders across the school district, over 60 community leaders that I've engaged in conversations with, and looking at the information that I'm showing you. One of the things that I think is very important, while I certainly understand that as a community, as a state, we're seeing taxes rise, we're seeing property values rise. But in terms of, when we put some context to it and what our neighbors, what they're paying in terms of their tax rate. And actually, I like to use the term investing, what local area communities are investing in their schools and in their kids and in their staff. We are well below everyone. You see San Marcos, lower than Del Valle, Prairie Lee, Luling, our Caldwell County neighbors, Bastrop, Seguin, Maynard, Hayes, all of our surrounding neighboring districts, we by far have the lowest tax rate. With the tax rate that the board just approved and with the tax ratification election that will also go in November, we will still be the lowest, have the lowest tax rate in the area. When we look at, Ms. Dean mentioned our debt per student, in that, we certainly take pride with managing our facilities, with not having debt. And you can see that by far, when you compare us to our neighbors, we have far less debt than anyone else around us. Even with a proposed bond, if the community were to pass a bond in November, we would still have the lowest debt per student rate. We'd still be lower than Luling, lower than Hayes, Seguin, San Marcos, Bastrop, Prairie Lee, Del Valle, Maynard, than our most immediate neighbors. I think that's important context as well for us to look at in terms of how much are we investing in our students and in our schools. When we look at our most urgent needs, we've had these conversations, going back a few months now, in our capacity and using our capacity without having a tax rate increase. Our most pressing needs are, one, land for an elementary school and an elementary school building, and then 2, in addition to Lockhart High School. Those combined is about $71 million, which is where we are going to be recommending for the November 2022 bond. In terms of the cost of the INS tax rate, it would be 0 cents. There is no increase to the INS tax rate. I think we cannot say that enough. Further, as we just went over, when we look at the effects on the tax rate with the bond and with the TRE, there's still a tax rate decrease that gives us the ability to have a $71 million bond and to generate an extra $1 million in our operating budget through the TRE as well. Our plan, and we want to be very clear about this, is that we are a fast growth district. There are over 7,000 homes approved and sites ready to be built within our district boundaries. There's economic development happening that could accelerate that. But even if no new business came to town, there are already 7,000 homes ready to go within our district boundaries. So we know that this bond isn't going to be the last one. And we're already planning for growing at the school district as our community continues to grow. And we plan to, at the latest, it could be sooner, but right now with our current growth rate, we continue to grow a little less than 3% a year. In 2025, coming back for elementary number 7, junior high number 2. We'll need an addition to the CTE wing at Lockhart High School and pre-K expansion as well. Our pre-K numbers, actually this morning, we got our numbers and we are about 40 students more than where we thought we were going to be. Preschool is very hard to determine because it's not mandated and we don't have any previous records of students, but we already have clipped where we thought we were going to be in 2023 as of today. So again, this is planning for, but it can change. But we want to be transparent with our community that our district, school district, we are growing. And the only way that we can manage that growth is to have a long-range plan that looks at where the priorities are. And as it stands today, this three-phase approach is how the district plans to move forward. As I mentioned, we had focus groups the last number of months. About 60 community members reviewing our information, our data, our plans, the tax rate, really looking for blind spots, things that the district could consider, just giving us really good feedback on how to move forward. Also, if the bond were to pass, we have planning a bond oversight committee, a committee of about 8 to 12 people to essentially ensure that the promises that were kept or that were made are kept. And they will have frequent meetings, access to, the progress that the district is going through with the bond project and giving feedback to our community. And we already have a handful of people who have agreed to be on that bond oversight committee, and we are still open to having a couple more, but I think we'll safely have probably 10, if not 12, on that bond oversight committee. Election day would be November the 8th. Last day to register, October the 11th, and then early voting, of course, will start October 24th through November 4th. Any questions?
I think this $71 million bond issue in November is very important to the district. There's no fluff in it. There's no sports stadiums. There's nothing like that. It's just capacity to house students. And there's other needs within the district that we could look to fund something, but this is so important. This is just the very basics, and it's really going to be important that this passes.
That's right. You reminded me. This is the basics. $71 million. Our debt capacity is over 142 million, but we are going with 71 so that we don't have to ask for a tax rate increase, and we'll continue to move forward as we get new businesses, new rooftops. We think that we'll continue to be in a position to potentially not have a tax rate increase and continue to have bonds with a 0% tax rate increase in the future.
Can you say that one more time?
Yes, sir. So with economic development, with new businesses, with new homes being built, adding to the tax base, it is possible that these future phase bonds will have a 0% tax rate increase as well.
So any other questions, board?
I like the way it's laid out also in the phases, and I think it's just fiscally responsible. It's what we need. There's not a list of wants in here or anything like that, because I have some things I could add in there if we were doing wants. I think the administration, those individuals who you've communicated with, Mark, I think they've done a great job of just laying out. It's meeting our basic needs. I mean, we've got to have buildings and facilities to teach kids in, or they will not learn. And I think you drive home a very important point, talking about safety. There is no safety when you have portables on your campus. There's no way of keeping kids safe when they've got to go outside the portables. And I think we have to look at that as a district also.
Mr. Estrada, we also addressed that it does include some inflation for building.
Yes, it does. In your board packet, I believe it's the last attachment. You'll see that there's a allotment for inflation. There are also, allotments for contingencies as well. But yes, it does assume a 10% inflation.
Why did we decide again? I just want you to say it again. I know the reason, but I want you to say it.
Sure.
To not go for the 140 million or do the exact project we were doing last time.
In terms of why not do the exact project as last time, the community told us they spoke on how they felt about that bond package and that tax rate increase. This time we're coming with just the basic, most urgent needs, and also keeping it to a 0 cent tax rate increase. Both things the community has given feedback to give us the best chance to address their needs.
So we chose to listen to the community and do what they wanted, present a package that will not raise their taxes.
Not raise their tax rate.
Their rate, yes.
Anybody else? Any other?
Very clear evidence been laid out in a clear way, and everyone in the community evidently can drive around and see that there's so much building, and inevitably that equates to growth, and growth in schools is evident because we've had the same schools for so many years. So we want to advocate for kids, we want to provide, and safety is a key issue. So no increase in the tax rate, and then listening to the needs of the community is important. So we really, really strongly encourage the community to really listen and advocate and vote for this package.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, I would hear a proposal to a motion for this proposition.
I move that the board approve one bond proposition in the amount of $71 million to include a new elementary school, expanding the Lockhart High School, and the purchase of land for school sites and facilities as recommended by the administration.
We have a motion. We have a motion by Dr. Sanchez, a second by Ms. Pulliam. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Passes 7-0. And I would remind the board now that we have voted on this proposition, and it changes the way we can approach our discussion of the bond when we're in session. Remind you not to use school resource or anything like that in talking about the bonds. And as private citizens, you're free to do what you want or what you desire. Okay, moving to number 9. Consideration and action with respect to an order calling a bond election for the November 8th, 2022 uniform election day.
Mr. President, I move that the board approve the order calling for a bond election to be held on November 8th, 2022.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Mr. Guyton, a second by Mr. Riles. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Passes 7-0. It is 6:55 p.m. This meeting is closed.
Yeah.
Oh, there's some stuff, more stuff we got.